Sark and company are hosting some more key 2024 recruits this weekend for their second junior day. Who do we need to know, and which key positions could be getting a talent infusion? Justin Wells, recruiting aficionado, is here to break down all the key players that'll be on campus this weekend. Recruiting never sleeps, and Inside Texas is your spot to stay up to date with each and every Texas target. Subscribe to InsideTexas.com today. Link in the description. Let's get caught up to speed on what the Texas staff is looking for early into this cycle. Without further ado, let's get into it. Good to see you, Justin. And it's early in the cycle, but how is the Texas staff looking going into year 3 of building this recruiting machine?
You know, the first two classes were heavy because you needed a lot of roster turnover. I think that's why they hit the portal pretty judiciously, but they really built up these last two classes. I think in 2024, it's going to be a smaller number just because of spots and spaces. In the portal age, that can change from day to day, month to month. But right now, this is going to be a smaller class. So I think Texas is being a little more patient with who they're going to take. They've handed out a handful of offers at each spot. They've got priorities across the board. The cool part is they may only have 2 commitments in this class so far, but they are in great standing with the majority of the players they want. Whether they get them or not, that remains to be seen. That's why you got to pay attention for the next 9 to 10 months. But at the end of the day, Texas is positioning itself very well. They just signed a top 5 class and a top 3 class. One was coming off a losing record. One was coming off a pretty good season, ended in an Alamo Bowl loss. Now, they're not only selling the vision in the future, they're selling the now. They have one of the most talented quarterback rooms in the nation. And for any offensive skill guy, that is very, very alluring. And then on the defensive side, they continue to grow in PK system day after day, week after week. Texas is in a good spot right now with a handful of recruits, and they've got a bunch coming in this Saturday for the March 25th, the second junior day of 2023. It's going to be interesting to see who shows up. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what they say. And there's some new names that weren't necessarily priorities a few months ago that have popped up, and you're going to see that. It's a constant evaluation process. Somebody they may have liked in December, they may not be big on in March. They've got a new wide receiver coach, Chris Jackson, comes from the Jacksonville Jaguars. That wide receiver board has changed a little bit over the last few months from when Brennan Marion was in the spot. And so it's a fluid class all the way. It's going to be a lower numbers, but there's going to be some potential for some really high-end talent in this 24 cycle.
That's good news. And Texas is in a good spot for the top running back in the nation and Jarrett Gibson. Even though he won't be at junior day, are there any updates on his recruitment? And then we have a key running back that is visiting this weekend and Christian Clark out of Phoenix. So where does he fit into the bigger picture?
Jarrett Gibson remains the top target on the big board for 2024. That's Tashard Choice Special. In the year that he's been in Austin, he's a big game hunter. He doesn't go for 30 or 40 trout. He goes for the marlin. And when he signed Cedric Baxter last year, the #1 tailback in the country, that was a statement. Helping Bijan Robinson go into the NFL as probably the top running back prospect, likely first-round pick, also helps as well. Rashawn Johnson can also have a mention in there as well. Jarrett Gibson remains the guy on top. He is going to take an official visit June 23rd to the 25th. Texas remains in a great spot, but they're going to have to throw hands with some schools, Homer. I mean, Georgia has been coming on really hard lately. Alabama's in the mix. Tennessee is pushing. We saw one domino happen with a big-time tailback. I can't remember his name. He committed to Michigan. He was like an Ohio State lean. And I think there's going to be a domino effect after that. I think you'll see like a trickle down. James Peoples, tailback out of San Antonio Veterans Memorial. Texas has, he's on their radar, but that's a guy that might be leaning Ohio State now. So I think you'll start to see things kind of shift more and more, over the spring. You'll see some more visits. Kids will hit spring games, but essentially you're setting everything up for a big June because that's when the official visits happen. And Jarrett Gibson's going to take his last official in Austin, Texas. And that really bodes well for Texas and for Tashard Choice. He's #1. If there's #1, that means there has to be a #2, and that's Christian Clark. And buddy, this is one underrated son of a gun. It's funny. Choice goes after the big game, and then he goes and finds his tailback in Phoenix, Arizona, Mountain Point, about 5'11", 6 foot, 205 pounds. Looks like a freaking bowling ball. Looks up to Bijan Robinson. Fantastic tailback. When the sites catch up to the re-rankings, he's going to be one of your top tailbacks in the country. That I feel like is the number 2 guy on the board. They're very fond of him. He's supposed to be coming in this weekend. That's a big visit for both. Clark, this is his first time in Austin. For Choice and those guys, it'll be a chance to talk and meet face to face and kind of start to build that relationship as well. And those 2 running backs will tell you what the rest of the running back cycle is going to look like. Taylor Tatum, James Peoples, Bryant Jackson. There's a handful of other guys, probably Keedron Young out of Lufkin. There's a handful of other guys that are definitely in that mix for one of those spots. It's a 2 running back class in 2024. Jarrett Gibson, they have him penciled for that first spot. Christian Clark could be their second take in that class. If you get those 2 guys, you did exactly what you did last year when you took Cedric Baxter and Trey Wisner. And so right now, Texas has really positioned themselves well, and you got to give most of the credit to Shard Choice.
And that's really only the key name on offense because this junior day is more geared towards the defense. And we need some more talent on the interior defensive line as we prep for SEC play. So who is Bo Davis going after this weekend? I know we have a Texas legacy and Alex January attending.
So with Alex January, he was originally scheduled to be in Oklahoma this weekend, and then he decided he wanted to come back to Austin. This is the Texas legacy. His father, Michael January, played linebacker for Texas in, I believe, the mid-late 80s. He's grown up in a Texas Longhorn household. They've had season tickets for the longest time. His older brother is actually a freshman at Texas. So all of that makes a lot of sense. The fact that he's coming back after a junior day visit only resonates how important it is for January and that family to be closer to Texas. I always felt like Texas was kind of the leader de facto, even before they offered. They had been talking for a while. And this is a kid that was a 2-year starter since he's 15 years old on the interior defensive line at Duncanville. That's a tall task for such a young guy, 6'4", about 310, 315. I think Texas remains in a great position for January. He wants to take a few more visits after this. He'll take his official in late June to Austin as well. I predicted a decision really close after that last official visit. So Texas is basically getting their bearings a lot better when it comes with January. Nigel Smith is the new one. Now, he's not new to recruiting because he's one of the top-rated defensive linemen in the nation. I think he's number 1 in Texas, matter of fact. A big kid out of Melissa. This relationship, it felt like it was kind of, I wouldn't say splintered, but I didn't feel like there was an effort from either side. Nigel had always kind of looked out of state for the most part. I think Texas was looking at other guys early on in the evaluation, but that's what you do. You continually watch film and you continually update things and you continually talk to coaches and scouts and figure out who's your best fit. And now that Nigel Smith's going to be making his way back to Austin this weekend, that tells me Texas still has some interest. Nigel's been on campus a handful of times already. He visited twice last year on unofficial trips and caught one of the games as well. And so he's an interesting one. That's going to be the one that if you're a Texas fan, you want to tune in. I want to talk to him Saturday and Sunday and kind of get a feel for where that recruitment is. It's really 2 sides of the spectrum. With Alex January, you kind of know where he stands. You kind of know where he's feeling. On the other side with Nigel Smith, it's kind of an unknown. And that's the fun part of it, because one kid that may not be a priority 3 months ago could turn into one in 2 days. And that's how fluid this thing is. And so they're definitely going to look for the D-line. They didn't hit it very hard last cycle. Sadir Mitchell was the only one. Granted, he's big enough for 2 players, but still you got to add numbers at that spot. You got to throw some numbers out there. And right now, I think those 2 guys coming in this weekend is big.
And then the most crucial position is edge, and Texas has landed some good players the past couple of classes, but they need that top-tier difference maker in this class. Luckily, we have a couple of top-tier dudes coming in, so who are the guys we need to look out for this weekend?
Well, it's no secret, but Colin Simmons is as advertised. He is the top edge in the state, one of the top in the nation for a reason. He is the definition of explosive. Just watch some clips. His first step is illegal. What he did the state championship against North Shore was X-rated. Some of this stuff shouldn't be allowed. He's that good. And he brings a mindset and a mentality of domination. I've known Colin Simmons almost 3 years now. I met him as a freshman when he was playing basketball, wearing glasses and a tank top that looked like it was for a seventh grader. It was way too tight. Fast forward a couple years, this kid is different. He is transformed, but he's still that talent. He's still that uber talent. Look, LSU, Alabama, and Georgia lead that recruitment. And you know what they all have in common? They've all won national championships in the last 3 or 4 years. Texas is right next to it. They are on the edge. And as of the last month or so, they have really been pushing for Simmons naturally. They'll get him on campus this weekend. That's a big deal because he's seen places. He went to Georgia. That's about as hot as it gets right now. He just left Arizona State. I believe he's going to hit LSU again. But right now, Colin Simmons coming in is a big deal. But what's even bigger is that Texas is making up ground there. This is going to be a kid that goes the distance. And if this defense improves again like it has the last 2 years progressively each season, if the Horns are in Arlington for the Big 12 championship in December, Texas will be in that top 3. But they're going to have to prove it on the field. The best thing they're doing right now is maintaining that relationship, that bond. Because that's an all-hands-on staff recruitment from Steve Sarkisian to Coach PK, Coach Choate, Bo Davis, Jeff Banks. This is all hands on deck. They've had some success in Duncanville. They're recruiting his teammate right now, Alex January. Those guys are buddies. Cam Williams, a guy he used to go against in practice on a regular basis. He's playing offensive line, right? He's the backup offensive lineman at Texas right now. So there's some connection there. And right now, if I'm a Texas fan, there's not another player that's visiting this weekend that I'd be more excited about. Zena, the next one. Zena was a kid. I remember meeting Zena a couple of years ago with his brother. And you could just kind of tell that he was going to be next. He's got an incredible body, 6'4", 210, 215, 220 range. He's starting to fill out a little bit more. He's a more bend the edge kind of guy. He doesn't have the explosiveness of Colin Simmons, but he has the athletic traits, and he has that disposition you want from a guy that's going to be chasing the quarterback. Zena's one that this recruitment's a little up in the air. If you'd have asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you Texas leads, not just because his brother's there, and not just because he watched a lot of games last year traveling to watch his brother play, but just because that recruitment, I have a sense with this one that Zena's trying to figure out where he wants to go. Does he want to follow his brother, or does he want to forge his own path? We see it's always one or the other with brothers. And I think that's what we're still trying to figure out with Zena. And I think he's still trying to figure that out. He's got some schools hot in the mix. OU has been on him hard. Texas A&M has. I think LSU has kind of pulled back a little bit of late. They're still in the mix. Alabama still contacts him on a regular basis. Or does he want to, follow his brother and join a program where he could actually be a difference maker at a position that Texas has signed a high 4-star or 5-star at almost every spot in the last 2 cycles, except for an edge. And so does he want to be that kind of guy that could come in and play early? Early playing time is important to him. So that's another one that's going to be fun to follow. I'm curious. I want to catch up with Zena this weekend and kind of see where he's at in his recruitment. That's another one I think is going to go probably into the summer. He'll set those officials in June. Texas will get an official at some point. That's the most interesting storyline about this weekend if I'm a Texas fan. Colin Simmons and Zena Umeozulu coming in. Those are 2 guys you want to really stock this roster, Homer. Add those 2 edges to the mix. They don't get much better.
Yeah, we need some big wins there. And last year we had a loaded linebacker class, but more depth never hurts. Are there any key linebackers coming in this weekend?
Yes, sir. Jasper, linebacker Ty Anthony Smith, 6'1", 6'2" range, a little over 200 pounds, maybe 210 on a good day. Ty Anthony's a kid that kind of blew up in recruiting over the last few months. It was always a big prospect, was always a really athletic, talented kid down in Jasper. Then the national schools caught a hold of him, and he started getting offers from the Alabamas and the Miamis and the Floridas. And then his recruitment, I think he was always destined to be kind of an in-state kid, rather it be Texas A&M. I think Baylor actually has a good standing with him. Texas Tech might have made a little push. TCU has done well in-state. Now he's the one that the in-state guys are going to have to fight off some out-of-state guys, because what Smith brings is the ability to cover in space. And if you can play some inside backer and cover in space in 2023, you are better than 90% of the players that play your spot. That's a big thing. Ty Anthony could essentially be a de facto hybrid safety. This is a guy that he's versatile enough. He's not as athletic as like a Jelani McDonald, who they just signed out of Waco Connolly, but man, he's more filled out, and he's more likely to bring hat in the middle. He's gonna shoot gaps, and he's gonna bring pain, and that's what you want. And so this is gonna be a low number linebacker class, like you said. The last cycle, I believe they signed 4, and that's not even counting McDonald, who could be an outside linebacker, could be a safety. Jelani McDonald could play a dozen positions. He's that athletic. So they're going to be judicious when it comes to this cycle at linebacker. Ty Anthony Smith is definitely one of the top ones. I loved where Texas was a few months ago. I think the out-of-state schools have his attention. I know Alabama has his attention, and that's natural. The Crimson Tide and Nick Saban, they have a way about doing that. But right now, I would give I think Texas is probably your quiet leader. And this weekend should solidify where they stand and how much they have to fight off the out-of-state foes.
Good stuff. And now we have defensive back. Our key recruit there is Selman Bridges out of Lake Belton. What makes him a unique athlete?
Well, the first thing you notice is about Selman Bridges is that he's 6'4". And a lot of times in measurements when it comes to recruits and prospects, they're exaggerated. Like a lot of people's measurements, they're exaggerated. Not this guy. Selman Bridges, I actually showed up to Lake Belton the evening that Steve Sarkisian and Jeff Banks were on campus and offered him. And he played a basketball game. He was a good basketball player. Played with Micah Hudson, the top receiver in the state, one of the best in the country. Selman can actually turn his hips and go. Like you would think, okay, 6'4", that's a little too tall for corner. They love a 6'1", 6'2" guy, but 6'3" is kind of pushing it. 6'4", it's really hard to flip your hips and stay on the top of your feet whenever you're that tall. Bridges seems to have a knack for that, though. And also understand, with the defensive back targets in the 2024 cycle for Texas, a lot of these guys are cross trainers. Corian Gibson may be listed at safety, but the Lancaster athlete is being recruited at corner. Kobe Black may be listed at corner, but he could play corner. He could play nickel. He could be a big safety. There's a lot of guys that are going to be doing that could look at different spots. Then you brought in a Derek Williams and a Warren Roberson from the last cycle. Those are two guys that are, Williams will be a safety. Roberson will be a safety / nickel, kind of figure out how to put him on the field best. Selman Bridges, you don't turn down height. You don't turn down a kid that's as aggressive, that can play the run. He's got a wingspan, buddy. Like, and it was apparent in watching him play basketball. I think I watched him play basketball 3 or 4 times this year. And as impressive as Micah Hudson was athletically, Selman Bridges was from his height and his standpoint. He is a popular guy. Now, once those offers started flowing in, they really flew in. And so Arkansas's in the mix, TCU's in the mix, Miami's in the mix. LSU wants to flirt with him a little bit. I think Alabama's sending him a couple letters. I love where Texas is at because I felt like they got in on the ground floor. And a lot of times when these kids boost and they kind of their exposure explodes, they're able to remember who was there first. And I'm not saying Texas was first. There was a handful of other schools in the mix earlier than that, but they were there to set a good foundation. He really likes Coach Shark. He really likes Coach Joseph. This is going to be his first real kind of visit to Texas. He's been waiting for this since he got his offer the night I talked to him. And so that one to me is probably the most interesting guy that'll be in this weekend in the DB department.
You're the man, Justin. Thanks for the intel, and please let the fans know where they can stay locked in on all the latest recruiting news as the 2024 cycle heats up.
Always at InsideTexas.com. That's where we are every day, every night. It's the biggest building community in the market. On3 has been a tremendous asset to the network and to helping Inside Texas and vice versa. Come see us. Come hang out. Spring ball is a big deal. Recruiting is a big deal. We've got so much spring practice report stuff coming. We've got more recruiting information coming daily. Come hang out with us. Give us a try. InsideTexas.com. You can find me on Twitter at JustinWells2424. Nothing but love, Homer.
And that's a wrap on Justin Wells. Head over to InsideTexas.com and sign up today. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook 'em.